So kia ora everybody and welcome to the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow webinar number 3. We are just going to start off today with a TENS karakia that was gifted to TENS just to set the scene and get the ball rolling for our thinking today. Maori ora ki a mātou, arahina mātou ki a mātou mahi. Ki mihia he huarahi mo te kaupapa o Mautaranga o Hangarau. A whina atu, a whina mai. Te po e here ni I a mātou, hui tae ki e. So like I said, kia ora. Today we are looking at conceptual development, so how we can go through the process of conceptual design. So just to reinforce some of the things we've gone on before in previous webinars, remember the entries are actually open, people can submit if they wish to, but the actual competition is running and rolling. There is a key date coming up in just a couple of weeks' time where if teachers and students wish to, you can submit your overall thinking, your proposal for your project. And what we can do is, as judges, we will actually give you some feedback based on your submission, so you can go away, tweak it, improve it, all those different kinds of things, and ready to prepare you for really getting stuck into those projects through July. Obviously, the final deadline there is the 4th of September for the entire project. Now, you do not have to do the initial submission for the feedback if you do not want to. You're more than welcome just to keep rolling with your projects. But if you do want feedback from judges, we do advise popping in that proposal. So to reiterate what we started to look at last week, we're going to be focusing on the next stages of design thinking. And the last webinar that we were looking at, that Michael was talking about, was looking at the understand section of the design thinking model. So that was really coming from that empathize perspective, where you're starting to look at people's needs, people's wants, how you can help and support people, and really defining the problem, how you're going to potentially solve it, what you need to find out about, who you are designing for, all those different ideas. And then when you put them together to actually create what we call in technology curriculum a conceptual statement, you write a brief and you write your key attributes or your specification. So they're your criteria to look back on. So when you go into the next stage, which is ideation and then prototyping, in the ideation stage, you need to have that brief always in the back of your mind and the stakeholders that you are designing for. So throughout this process, you will be referring back to them all the time to get their feedback, because of course you need to design and create something which is fit for purpose and suits the needs and the people that you're designing for too. So the first step of ideation is really about just brainstorming as much as possible, getting a big brain dump and putting down as many different ideas that you can think of. And these can be rough, they don't have to be fully thought out. This is the ideation stage. And in technology, we can do this in lots of different ways. So one way that designers work is by creating very quick thumbnail sketches. As you can see, there's an example there. This is from a designer who was going through and designing a logo. And all they are is what it says, basically. They are very quick, small, fast sketches that explore the idea in lots and lots of different ways. So there's not much explanation in there. It's really about getting as many ideas from your brain as possible down onto paper in this case. Another way you can view ideation and get lots of ideas down is, of course, by using different brainstorming tools. The traditional one that everybody knows is by post-it notes and putting lots and lots of ideas down as a team and popping them together and organizing and sorting them into different contexts and concepts. Other ways, you can use digital tools if you want to. There's lots and lots of ways to bung ideas down and to actually have it recorded so you can explore it further later. You can even, if you prefer, instead of having it haphazard like a normal brainstorm or spider diagram, which is what a lot of people use, you can create lists of ideas if you want to. It doesn't matter. What's important is getting those ideas down from your brains, especially if you're working in a group collaboratively, and popping them down onto paper or into a document. So you've got them recorded so you can always come back to them later on if you need to come back to the drawing board a little bit. The third idea that we have on here is something that lots of different designers use to help to inspire them when they're creating their design concepts. And this is where you see mood boards. Now, mood boards could be a physical board. It could be a digital image. It can be, in quite a few cases, a whole wall of an office I've seen in previously with different designers, especially in things like fashion design. And mood board is basically a collection of images which will help to inspire you in that area. So if you, for example, are designing, the example that we've got in the teaching resources is this cat toy to slow down their eating habits. If you could find lots and lots of images to help and inspire with it, it could be products that are out there. When you've done your product analysis and your research, you thought that's quite a good idea, you could put that on there. Anything to do with your cats maybe on there. Different types of food products from cats, they could be on there. If you've got particular stakeholders who like certain, and you're designing for a particular one person rather than a group of people, they may have personal preferences in color or theme or patterns or all those different kinds of things, or needs that the product that you're designing has to fulfill. So you can start to just basically bung all these ideas down on a visual board of some description. And then when you go into the next step of creation or a conceptual design, you've got that there as an inspiration board to help and support you. So that's the first stage. The first stage is just popping as many ideas down as you can, as quickly as you can. And if you're in a group, collaborating and working together to spark those ideas off each other. So the next step in conceptual designs is taking quite a few of those ideas and developing them further. You may want to focus on 2 or 3 of them. You may want to focus on a couple of more, especially if you're working in a group, because you can each take an idea and develop them yourselves and then bring them together at the end if you want to. The way you select these is by looking back at your brief and your attributes and your specification and checking those initial ideation ideas to make sure that they actually match. And so do they make sure that the product is going to be fit for its purpose? Is it fit for its need? You may even want the stakeholder to look at your really quick sketches and ideas and go, oh, I like that one, and tell you why they like things or what you can do to improve them, because that stakeholder feedback is really important throughout the whole process. In this particular case, you can see that you can use different ways of sketching if you want to. They can be by hand, they can be digitally. Once again, they can be using words and things as well to explain if you want to. It doesn't matter as long as you're getting the idea across in communicating the idea. This one as well, you can see that the ideas that were most favored, the artists themselves or the designer themselves have actually started to render or add some color to some of those key ideas, so those ideas pop out a little bit more. So you can start to see where the design ideas and the thoughts are going as you're actually working through the process. Now, sometimes you get a brain block and you get stuck for ideas. That's where you can have a look at that mood board that you've created, if you've got one, and use that to help you. The other thing that you can do is, if you have a look at the design sheet, a lot of these have been inspired by products that are actually already out there on the market. So they're using those to inspire new ideas and develop them and improve them and make them better. Sometimes you can be inspired by the people around you. You can be inspired by geometry and patterns in nature, in buildings, in landscapes, in all kinds of things. There's lots of things out there that can inspire you, and in our cultures as well. So you can integrate and weave that sense of identity and uniqueness into your designs too, if you want something a little bit different. Once you've started to come up with these different ideas, the next step is to really start to take it down to 1 or 2 ideas for the next stage, which is really developing an idea. But how do you do that? How do you really pick which ideas are the best ones to go with? Because you might have a few which are actually thinking that could work really well, but so could this one. So remember, link back to that brief in your stakeholders And what you can do to help and support that is by annotating and explaining your design. So in this image here, you can see the designer has started to link back to the problem that's trying to solve. They've started to annotate and explain. They've started to describe the design ideas a little bit. So what could it be made from? How could it possibly work? All those different kinds of things. And so when someone new comes in, like if your stakeholder hasn't been part of the design process and they're seeing this for the first time, these annotated notes can help them to understand your conceptual ideas. And then how do you select those different ideas and take them further? Well, once again, you can use your brief and use your attributes and your specification, and you can analyze the ideas against them. So in webinar 1, we showed you some examples of this when we had one of the entries who designed and created the strap to hold the toys in bed. But what they did was when they went through the designing and prototyping stage, they kept referring their models back to their attributes and to make sure that they were going to be successful for all the criteria, all the attributes that they had written. So this is where you start to bring in the analysis. You can see here it's really clear to see any good points and any bad points because they are drawn in different colors. But this analysis then helps you to choose the 1 or 2 ideas you want to take on further for the next stage, which is looking at developing those conceptual ideas. So once you've got 1 or 2 key ideas to develop further, the next stage is going through what we call, is actually development if you're looking at the technology curriculum. So in the technology curriculum, all of this work falls under the technological practice strand, and it comes specifically underneath the outcome development and evaluation section of the technological practice strand. So clear links to curriculum here that's coming through. As part of that is the development of those ideas. Now we've got a great resource that's available to you, which is a teaching resource, which shows you lots and lots of different ways to actually develop an idea. So it could be using what we call functional modeling. So they're models, they could be scale models, they can be testing and trialing materials, they can be testing and trialing how parts of something works, but they're not the actual thing itself. What they're doing is they're testing and trialing the ideas. And you can see a few of those functional models in the examples of the images on the screen as well. So especially at the top, the first one with the knife project, which was another project that was submitted last year. You can see them, they're testing and trialing ideas, and that was for a knife in the kitchen. But you can see they're using materials which aren't knife-like. There's no sharp edges. But what they're doing is they're testing the ergonomics, and they're testing. So the ergonomics is how it will work in regards to people using them. Obviously, they're using it with their hands. The other thing that they're testing on here is maybe the size and the proportion and the scale. Does it fit? Would a piece of food fit underneath there? All those kinds of things. And so these different ideas come through. So there's lots of things you can test and trial when you're functional modeling. Like I said before, the other thing you can test and trial is your materials and potentially how you're going to make it. So because those ideas and processes may change, and you may come up with one functional model that's working really well in the appropriate materials, but there's something slightly wrong with one section of it. So you can really go to town to focus on those little areas. Once again, in development, you will find that there's clear, you need to get your stakeholder feedback, get people testing, trialing, using your models in different ways. You can see the cat example one, those were lots of different functional models, and the cats did get in there to try out the cat feeders, as you can see from the images, but they're testing and trialing, and it's really through that testing and trialing process, you can find out if materials are suitable, or whether you need to change them for something that's more appropriate, or whether the process actually works. Does it function how it is supposed to? Those kinds of things which are really important. And you may even find that in this stage, you might have to go away and do some more research to find out how to solve problems. And that's fine too, because the design thinking process is what we call an iterative cycle. So you can repeat it and repeat it and repeat, and it's fine because you're going through and developing it. But as you're developing it, you're making it better bit by bit by bit. And the other thing to be important to be aware of is this is great for growing our resilience to failure, right? Expect to fail is what I'm going to tell you, because it will happen. And as teachers and as students, we've all got to learn that actually sometimes the first thing doesn't work right. So you just try again. It doesn't matter that it doesn't work right. What that does is that shows you that you've got things that you can solve, and you can go away and can try and problem solve it and work around that issue, and just try again and try again and try again and try again as many times as you want. And that's what real life designers do. There, if you have a look at James Dyson, who developed the bagless vacuum cleaner. I mean, this has been around years and years now. But when he was first starting, functional modeling, just to actually test the shape of the first bagless vacuum cleaner, he made, I think it was over 1,000 cardboard models just to test the size and the shape of the actual casing. And so he tested and tested and tested and tested. Now, I'm not saying in your projects that you're going to be doing 1,000 models, but what we are doing is we're looking at that iterative process, and we're developing it and improving it based on your stakeholder feedback. And then that will lead you into prototype development, which is obviously what we're going to be looking at in the next webinar, when you're looking at testing and trialing the final products that you're coming up with. So another way to help and support development is by using something that is called the Scamper model. And so this is where you maybe take your 1 or 2 or 3 conceptual ideas that you want to develop further, and you try out different things with it, with the designs. And so each letter represents something different in the Scamper model. So S is substitute. So you may have come up with a design concept and try and replace a part of it with something else, or and link it to something. So you're taking something away and adding something in to the design. Combining is where you maybe, instead of taking just one idea that you want to develop further, you might find from your conceptual designs, for example, you've got 2 ideas and you think, well, I really like this bit on this one and this bit on this one, and you can combine them together to make a better whole. And so that helps you when you're actually looking at, you can look at different types of materials and joining those together. So combine is another really great idea for the Scamper model too. Adapt is when you start to think of, well, can we start to change the purpose of it slightly? Can we start to alter it and change it and morph the function side of things? And can you tweak the idea that way? A really helpful one is modify, magnify, and minify. So you may take parts of the design and focus on different parts and make bits bigger and smaller. Like, if you're thinking of the knife handles, you would have had to do lots of work on the ergonomics and anthropometric data for how the handle of the knife fitted into your hand. And so what you can do is you can test and model and develop things with clay models, for example. You would make things larger, you would make things smaller, you would make things thicker, you may put texture on it. And so that's that modify, magnify, minify. You can alter the design slightly in key parts of it, and you can just focus on key parts. It doesn't have to be the overall solution if you want to develop that idea that way. Put to another use is another thing. So it's looking at changing the purpose slightly and seeing whether it would be successful in other purposes as well. So it may support with one thing, but can it help to support something else alongside at the same time? Eliminate is where you look at your idea and go, gosh, there's a lot in here. There's a lot of stuff in this. This is really overwhelming. Actually, I've not got this much time to make this. What can I do to simplify this and make it easier to use by the stakeholder, but also reduce the amount of time it's going to take you to create the actual product as well? So are there any things in there that aren't important? Can you remove it? And if you remove it, it won't affect the function of it, because of course that's really important as designers. And then when you're looking at the design of something and looking at shape and patterns and how things are put together, can you rearrange and reverse it? Can you alter and change the ideas so that you're actually playing with really the form of something, the aesthetics, the overall look of something? Will that help and change and develop your idea too? So those are lots and lots of different ways to actually develop your ideas from a brief and your concepts through to ideation and coming up with some solid conceptual designs that you can take further into the next stage. So what are the judges looking for? This is just a recap, and there is a link directly in this slide here where you can go straight to the full assessment criteria. As you can see, what we're looking at here with the conceptual designs is really focused in that creativity side. What is the discovery or approach from? Is it different from existing solutions? That's where you use your research to help. Have you modified it? Have you changed it? Have you improved it? All those kinds of things. It's also the integration of STEM or STEAM. So how are you integrating those, and have you made that clear? Does that come across really clearly in your design process that you're coming through? And obviously the other aspects, there are some parts of this with conceptual design woven into all of those things like feasibility, relevance, and then obviously how you're going to present and communicate those ideas. So like we mentioned before, there are lots of resources available online on the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow website. The black underline is the actual specific link for you. So you can click on this one. You can see it's my little icon there has just changed. That will take you to the web page where you can find all of these different ideas. So today, really what we have been exploring are the first two. So creating initial concepts, that's that first space, and then going into how to develop an idea. And this is quite a comprehensive resource to help and support you as you go through that process further too. And before we move on, I'm just going to see if there's any questions or any points from the rest of the team at MOTAT and Solve for Tomorrow to see if there's anything else they would like to explore or explain or ask in regards to conceptual development.
Sarah, I wonder whether there might be some questions about how to submit the proposal plan. If they are going to submit the proposal for early judges' feedback.
Absolutely. So if we have the link directly on the Solve for Tomorrow webpage, and there is, you can put the feedback in there. I haven't got the exact link. I would have to jump out and go straight into the website. Do you know which page exactly the link for feedback submission is?
I think maybe if we put a link into this presentation, so anyone who is viewing this later will be able to see that live link there.
Absolutely. So what we'll do is, once we finish the webinar, we can put that live link there for people to submit, probably on that, maybe on that key date slide, because then they can actually go straight into it. And then you can actually go in there and submit those initial feedback proposals. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Fantastic. So thank you for coming along and listening today and watching the video as well afterwards. If you do want a copy of these slides so you can access those links for submitting the feedback or for accessing some of the resources, you can either scan the QR code or use the bit.ly there, and that will take you to this particular slideshow so you can have a copy of it. Please be aware that this webinar is currently being recorded and it is going to be obviously made available. Hopefully you will begin to view that, and it is in two places. So we have it on the Solve for Tomorrow website, and we also have the TENS YouTube channel too. All previous webinars are currently up and live in those places as well. So if you want to view those ones, you can always go back to them. And we've got 3 more webinars up and coming as well in the next few weeks for the next stages of the design process. So please remember to jump online to the Solve for Tomorrow website, and you'll be able to register for the next webinars coming up in the series, and so that you can obviously access the content and help to develop your students further. Oh, thanks, Hayley. Hayley's going to pop the Solve for Tomorrow link in the chat. So thank you for obviously taking part in today's webinar and coming on, and either at the moment or coming on later on as well, and viewing in your own time. We are really looking forward to seeing some of these proposals for design ideas and projects coming through. And we'll just finish off today with the karakia from TENS. Kia amato katoa, koa mutu mato amato mahi, me kupapa hoki. Arahina mato ka amato mahi ano, kia whakatapua mato ki ngā kaupapa me ngā mea e whakapono. Manakitia mai mato. So kia ora everybody, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing those submissions in the near future. Ka kite.